yes, it's that time once again. We are back. Bullet was here with me, but he already disappeared, so he'll probably be back. I will try to get him on the mic because I know how much you guys miss him, and he just has fans. I think he even has groupies. So, I know you want Mr. Bullet to purr into the mic. I will try. Ladies, keep your clothes on, unless they're for me. Anywho, let's not make this podcast go completely sideways, shall we? Bullet, let's go. Get on the couch. We are ready to record. All right, guys, let's do it. Everybody, we are here again. Late, cold evening in Pennsylvania. I usually tell you how I find my guests. This one was a little different. If you guys remember, I wish I would have wrote it down, what episode, but if you remember, Denise and Brandon, my friend Joe's parents, and they talked about their son Jordan and the Special Olympics and whatnot. Brandon recommended this woman to me, and we finally got in touch, and she has a story, and there's a similarity, and it's parallels to mine as well. And she's a very kind woman, and happy that she was welcoming enough to want to do this. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Joanne Hostrander. I was born and bred here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I will be 70 years old in February. I worked 42 years for the hospital as a registered nurse, education specialist, and I taught at 4 colleges in full-time for Penn College. I did the recruiting and the hiring and the teaching for St. Francis University out of Joliet, Illinois. I taught 5 years at Lycoming College and started their health administration program. And also, there used to be a WAC component of the Pennsylvania College, and I taught medical terminology and cardiac dysrhythmias. I'm an advanced life support instructor trainer and basic life support trainer. I did crisis intervention training for 26 years. I spoke nationally on nursing topics, mostly on healing through humor, healing through music, those kinds of topics. So I've had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful nursing career. I worked ICU for 10 years, and then I was lucky enough to get pulled into the education department, and that became my love. I taught everything. I did a lot of lectures for local community programs here. I was chosen for Nurse of the Year and Business Women of the Year. So it's, Faculty of the Year. I mean, those things are just those things that stick out in my mind. Once you turn, 69, 70, you go, did I do good enough? And I have 2 beautiful children, and both are successful. And there's 9 nurses in the family, and my daughter just happens to be the 9th and the youngest one of registered nurses in the family. So that's a brief overview of my life.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Now I had my mom on. She's a registered nurse. She's a ER nurse in Philadelphia, and
oh, God bless her.
Yeah,
that's not an easy job.
No, it's not. And she works many 16-hour shifts and whatnot, and she really became a nurse because of all what happened to me. I mean, she was there when I was nearly dying, and my vision was going, and I was in really rough shape. So she spent those 4.5 months, and she saw me have good care and bad care. And later in life, when she kind of hit rock bottom, and just kind of financially, and she just was, in out of this really bad relationship she was in, and she just kind of said, "Screw it, I'm going to go to school for nursing." And she's been a nurse for I don't know how many years, but she's now in her 60s, so she can retire in 2 years. And but yeah, I had her on one to tell my part of the story, and then I had her on later on to kind of talk about her nursing career, and then also what it was like to be a nurse during COVID, because she's in Philadelphia, which was the hottest spot for Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
and
no one says to the nurses, "Thank you for your service." I tried to get one of our state representatives, you know how the firemen or the police have that little icon beside their name when they pass away?
Yeah.
I tried to get the nurse's lamp, the Florence Nightingale lamp, to be put across, the name of the nurse that passed away. But I'm a firm believer that we're the unspoken heroes. But she will tell you the first person that they yell for is the nurse when something goes down. I'm sure she's told you that 100 times.
Yeah, they
And
do a
so,
lot of the dirty work.
absolutely. And back, we're not much different in age, but back when we started, there was no auxiliary help. We didn't have respiratory therapy. We didn't have dietary. We didn't have, radiation therapists and all those things. So, that was the registered nurse purview. LPNs were a dime a dozen for the nursing homes, but not in, healthcare per se.
Sure.
And so, we could tell the stories of, the mental health institutions. As we went through nursing school, I spent 3 months at Danville State, and I was 18, and I never knew there was such a thing as mental health issues as there was back in the day. Of course, the drug then was LSD, and I never heard of that. And so there were many things that you got to see that you were never sure of. I went to school at Scranton State General Hospital, which was the hospital associated with St. Joseph's Hospital. They would call us over to feed the children. And of course, when they asked the freshman students, do you want to feed the children? We were like, oh, sure, yeah, that's great. But these children were microcephalics and hydrocephalics. And, we did get to hold an anencephalic as the child passed away. So, there were so many things that we saw that you would not see this day and age. And so, our nursing careers, which probably butt right up against each other, your mom and I, that it was a great time to learn, but it was a sad time to be young. We had the flood hit in '72. They flew us to the Watrous Armory in our freshman year, and we gave injections. I didn't even know which end was the needle. So, the stories are many. I saw my first AIDS case at Williamsport Hospital in '77, and it was amazing. Saw the first Legionnaires at Williamsport Hospital. They locked you in a room with the patient for 8 hours, and you held your nurse's notes up and on the window, and someone else would write your nurse's notes. So when I think back of the experiences, it's been an amazing career, and I wouldn't trade it for all the world.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, when she was telling some of the horror stories that she dealt with COVID and seeing how many dead people there were, and um, and then how so many of the nurses who didn't feel appreciated, they were leaving, and they were short staffed, and it's like you would think one of the few. You're fine with going, oh, they're short staffed at Dunkin' Donuts, but when you say they're short staffed at the ER, like that's a problem, and it was really kind of eye opening.
Your mom and I would say that we are living through our fourth nursing shortage. So it tends to go in years, anywhere from 15 to 20 years, where they had a nursing shortage. I did orientation for Divine and Williamsport and Susquehanna Health and then UPMC. I spent 30 years every 2 weeks doing orientation. And, you would see easy thousands of nurses come and go in a 2-year time frame because they didn't like the job. But the difference between your mom and I was that when I was in second grade, when I knew I wanted to be a nurse, my mother would go to, she worked in private homes. She would go looking breathtaking with her white shoes, white stockings, white uniform, navy blue sweater, and her nursing cap and her lipstick, and she looked stunning. She would come home looking as stunning as she left. I, on the other hand, my dad would have to bring me another uniform because some patient had an accident, and he'd always say, what do you do? Because your mother doesn't do that. Even though we were both RNs, it was just the way that the world had changed so drastically. And then you look again, when I was in nursing school, Roe v. Wade did not pass until I was out of nursing school. But when we went to the University of Scranton, because we were the first girls on campus at the University of Scranton, I had one teacher who was Father Zuppe. They had done, not that the Catholic school had done abortions or the hospital had done abortions, but babies had been stillborn or so what. And so he had brought in various pictures of babies from 0 to full term, and he'd say to us as young girls, which one of these would you abort? And that never left me. So I always believe that being pro-life is the most important thing, because even though I look at myself, I was diagnosed when I was 21 with macular degeneration, but mine was really called a flavus maculata. My maculas looked like 2 grenades went off in them. So I had no central, and I depended on my peripheral. That I was just as good as anybody else doing a job. But as the years went on, of course, the disease gets progressively worse, and I progressed to using a handheld magnifier, and then I got my CTV. And then finally, in 2004, I got a computer. And when everybody else had computers early in the 96 and 6s, I didn't get one because there wasn't the ADA. Nobody knew what that was, and nobody knew how to be compliant.
Sure.
And it still lacks in this town, the ADA compliance. I mean, after 30-some years, the speed bumps are just horrific if you're visually impaired. Even if you look where Payless Shoes used to be, you go up there's a ramp. It's half marked for the disabled,
Yeah.
but the other half comes off on a slight cliff. So if you don't pay attention, you're falling off of a cliff thinking you're on a straight road.
See, I like that you brought that up because I told you where I work, and so I'm working for this Center for Independent Living, but they do a lot for people with disabilities, and 51% of the company has a disability, and I'm a part of that, and I'm the first person they ever hired with visually impaired or blindness, and but half of my job is advocacy. So one day my CEO took me to one of these buildings. And she wanted me to I was kind of following her lead because she's been in the advocacy world for a long time. I'm a newer advocate, and I've been doing it. I'm just like a street kid from Philadelphia, just trying to, speak my mind and try to do my part. But I don't really know a whole lot about the disability movement. I do now because I've delved into it and watched documentaries and stuff. But she took me to one of these government buildings, and she was just like, can you tell that is out of place? And she was, at the time, was pointing at a water fountain. She said, you see, it's like protruding out the wall. She said, what if somebody was vision impaired and blind? They would run right into that. And I'm like, yeah, I do see that. But like for me, and I wasn't disagreeing with her, but I've lived my life for 31 years where if we're pointing that out as that isn't accessible, then most of my life hasn't been accessible because just anywhere, school, hospitals, whatever, and any building, most buildings that I've been into. So like, it was an eye-opening experience for me because I just have lived my life trying to find ways around everything and not thinking that I could actually be a part of a solution that can say, hey, you should change this stuff. Now, I knew, like, obviously, like, ramps were huge for people in wheelchairs. I knew that. But I never really thought of much being accessible because I'm like, oh, okay, elevators have little braille dots. Okay, that's accessible, I guess. But some of the buttons in the elevator are really small, so I can't see them unless I really look close. But I never really thought about it because for me, I just have always looked close, or I've always used my phone or something to zoom in, and so it's weird navigating life now through the lens of an advocate. Because like she had me the other day. She was like, I want you to, there's this government website. They told me that it's not accessible for visually impaired and blind people. And I'm like, okay. But so I showed her that my Mac computer can zoom in. She's like, well, I need you to be blind today. I'm like, okay. So I had to like turn voiceover on and pretend like I couldn't see the screen, and it's kind of interesting looking, like I said, looking through the life of as an advocate, and in that case as a blind person, because you realize not much is accessible, especially for visually impaired and blind people, and wheelchairs too. But wheelchairs, and again,
Wheelchair,
yeah, go ahead.
wheelchairs and the deaf. The deaf are well taken care of.
Yeah,
I mean, I put in Deaf Talk for the hospital, had the gentleman who sells Deaf Talk. We labeled the doors Deaf Talk. The deaf have a lot, I even took a sign language class. Being visually impaired and blind, I took a Deaf Talk class. And the lady did the sign language with her left hand, so I thought you did it with your left hand. And the funny thing was, you do it with your right hand, and it was just such a mess. But she passed me anyhow. I got the certificate, but I can do the alphabet. I'm good with the alphabet. But on the point of being an advocate, I have done a lot of phone calls. And let me give you one example that maybe if you don't notice, but I certainly do, is especially with this bad weather, when they put across the TV, they make a sound, but there is no verbal response after the sound. So if you're here with the high winds, so you don't know what's coming at you. You don't know if it's a tornado coming at you or what, because there's no sign or no verbal cues that tells you what just transpired.
yeah,
But under the Amber Alert, they're the only ones that read the Amber Alerts and the weekly checks for the air aid.
yeah.
But they're the only ones that read the notices. And even for the school closures, if you were a parent that was blind or visually impaired, you wouldn't know unless your phone reads, the Speak It tool. And that's what I tried to use. But let me tell you, you have visually able people and you put Speak It tool on, everybody gets angry. I mean, it just disrupts everybody. Turn it off. I can't stand it. Why do you need that? Turn it off. I'll read whatever you want.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, a blind friend of mine got yelled at by the bus driver because he had his voiceover on, and he just told him, he said, "You just you do your job and drive your bus," because it's like, sir, he kind of needs that to read. Like, sorry, that disturbs you.
It's very isolating, and I don't think people know that. But if there's not, there is no place for a visually impaired blind person to walk, really. And if you're you have one foot in the sighted side, or maybe if like macular degeneration, you have some peripheral, no central, or you have tunnel and you have no other vision. It is very difficult. There is no place that's an easy place to walk.
Yeah, especially in this town, there's not a lot of sidewalks, and
down to the new center, the music center at Lycoming College, that's clean. And it's all, straight walks, but then you have to be careful because there are steps down into that center. And so, even to walk at the hospital, you have to walk on the road, not the street part. That's not safe. So I think there needs to be more done in terms of where can we get some exercise? Where can we go that's safe? And who's going to help us? Because if you can't get Medicaid, where they give you a ride everywhere, and you don't have access or you don't know how to do, now you're young, God bless you, you're young. But if I hate to keep saying 70, it makes me crazy because my birthday's coming up. But you don't know how to use Uber, and I don't know if I trust what I was getting into. I have to tell you, being visually impaired, I got into a lot of cars that weren't there to pick me up.
Oh, yeah, I've done that a couple times.
Isn't that fun? So I just, if you are so serious about being an advocate, I would be honored to go with you, and I will be an advocate. I mean, I have called state representatives, the senators. I have fought for many things, and it's just a one voice fight. But I think for people who are visually impaired or blind, somebody needs to fight for them.
Yeah, I mean, and I tend to fight for the entire community, but I mean, visually impaired and blind was always going to be the most personal for me because that's what I am. And I seen growing up, even in Philadelphia, how atrocious it is. I mean, I lived there for 20 some years, and I don't know how many times I've seen buses just drop blind people off in the middle of the street, of a major street, and how hard it is for a lot of them. And there's a high school there that a lot of them they just send there because they give them no goals, or they're so beaten down. And the only reason I didn't go there is because I had someone fight for me. I was in the belief that I was useless and visually impaired and blind, and I had people really stand up and fight for me when I didn't feel like fighting for myself. And so a lot of this is now is also giving back to some of those people, and just doing what I think is right. And I think once you can kind of tap into who you are, tap into your disability, and find out that it's not necessarily a crutch or a hindrance, you can start to give back and do the right thing, and help the community, and all that. And so, yeah, like I said, I've been really, as I've been developed into a full-fledged advocate, not just for disability but also mental health. um, it's no pun intended, but very eye-opening, some of the things you see, some of the things you witness and you pick up on. And then just looking through it through the landscape of my eyes, just how life has been. It's that's why I've stated many times, and I've talked to so many people on here, that the hardest part about the disability isn't the actual disability, it's everything else. Because if life was fair, and again, I know life isn't fair for anyone, but I'm just saying, if life was relatively fair for us, the disability wouldn't be as bad. It just wouldn't. But it's always harder. It has gotten easy. Has it gotten easier over the years? Yes and no. I mean, we're not putting camps and stuff like that, but at the same time, everything is, I'm always at odds with fighting with somebody, whether it's the insurance companies or the doctor's offices trying to get this major procedure. I'm trying to get this major procedure done in the biggest eye institute in the United States, and I'm getting the runaround and getting mistreated, and it's awful because I don't want to fight them, because I fight every day. And then, of course, the fighting of Social Security. I mean, God forbid you get in their way, because a little thing came out on 60 Minutes recently about how they're going back and saying that a lot of people owe for Social Security, and now they're starting to claim what they think is theirs, even though they're admitting their mistakes. And then there's just so many other entities that get in the way and that you're constantly at odds with. So yeah, it sucks, because being an advocate is a great thing, but sometimes you just get worn out, because it's like, who do I start with first? Where do I
It
begin?
is. Who do you start with? Even after 38 years of working for the hospital, and uh, you know, people that I had in class who were my superiors, they said I was 10% less of a person, and I lost my job in 2012. My heart broke after 38 years. That's how many years I had been there. And I just wanted to go, you know what? I competed way ahead of you. My scores were better than you, and yet I was 10% less of a person. It took a lot. That was so traumatic. I couldn't even go into I did go into the unemployment office, but it was, the keyboard was yellow and black, which is, which will not work for a visually impaired person. And there was no speak it on the computer
Yeah.
at the career link. It was very traumatizing, and it took me a long time, years. And I'm still, you can hear it in my voice. I'm still hurt, but it's what they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Sure.
But I've always looked for my mission. What am I supposed to do with this? And when you asked, would you like to be interviewed? I was like, yes, yes,
Hmm.
this is my mission. So I was so excited and so honored that you would say yes to me. I was like, yes, I'm a person. Yes, I can do this. So I wanted to say thank you so much for the
Well, of course.
opportunity
And
to,
again,
to be a person that has something to say.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, no, like I said, I took it based on the faith of Brandon's word, but I'm always willing to communicate with anybody. And then when it comes to the podcast, because I always like helping people, I help people behind the scenes that have never been on the show. Sometimes I offer it,
That was
sometimes I don't.
you,
But go ahead.
you offered, whether you know it or not, but you one of the things you said, if you ever need to talk,
Oh yeah, yeah,
call me.
yeah.
And I thought, I the words went straight to my heart. I thought, there's one big fluffy angel out there.
Hmm.
And so if this is your God given mission, you are doing it.
I appreciate that.
You are amazing.
I
In
appreciate
case
it.
no one tells you today, you are awesome.
See, and this is what I've been telling my cat. He doesn't tell me that enough. So, and he's laying right here
My
sleeping.
cat.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, 'cause like I said, I never know who's good and is not good for the show. But at the end of the day, like I want the best representation possible. But at the same time, I also like to give people a real fair opportunity. I wanted to create like a safe space for those who, feel like they have a voice and they're never heard, and they can come and just talk, be themselves. And I think that's why, like, I always kind of had this conflicting argument with myself. Should I make it a visual thing? Should I make it an auditorial thing? And I'm like, you know what? No, I want to keep it audio based because there's a lot of people who have different impairments or inflictions and disfigurements and things, and they might not want to. Maybe they're not in a place they want to share their story, but they don't want to look a certain way, or maybe they have cerebral palsy or whatever. They have a certain thing, maybe, and I have people on with Tourette's, and they have little tics, and maybe they don't want that shown. And so behind a mic and behind a phone or whatever device you're on, you can listen to them and you can try to envision what they look like and whatever else, but really you don't know, and you can't really judge people based on their voice. You can, but it'd be really really shallow and really silly. But
I think that's one of the gifts you get when you're visually impaired, isn't it? Your faith is not by sight.
yeah, and I think taking away the visual element kind of puts people on the same like playing field as us. It's like,
Right.
you can't see what we're doing. You can't see what we look like. You can't see what we're doing. So now you have to listen. You're forced to listen. And you're forced to use your ears. You're forced to open your mind, and now you're like us. For an hour or whatever. You're just like us. Because I had this theory, and I said it like a year ago. Like, I wonder what it'd be like if like if the world was like blind for like I don't know, a month, or let's say 3 months, and then they kind of forgot what everybody looked like. They had the little Will Smith Men in Black pen, and everybody lost their mind. They forgot exactly what everyone looks like. They know who they are and all that. They know who everyone is, but they don't know what they look like. And everyone's blind for 3 months. Like, how would people treat each other? Would people find reasons to judge others based on like vocal inflections and stuff? Sure, of course. That's we're humans, so somebody's gonna do something stupid. But at the end of the day, we're kind of on a level playing field. You can't judge people based on their color or whatever, because you can't see them.
That's
So yeah,
right. But you can tell when you speak to someone. I mean, I can tell in a heartbeat who they are. Like, I oriented 6,000 people easy a year. And what strikes me, and I don't know if it strikes you, but it's I remember their voice. I know where they're from just by their voice, like where they worked, or which department they went to, or where I had them. I may not remember their name because I didn't see it,
sure.
but I can remember their voice. And so voices, to me, I can hear in their voice, whether they're happy or sad or angry to be with me or to share whatever they're sharing. And then I think sometimes you're right. I think the world should take a short visit through being visually impaired or blind. I think that would be an eye opener, as you would say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had an incident a couple 2 weeks ago where I was unraveling the cable on my my vacuum, and they had those little like prong things there. I don't know, a little, I don't know,
Yeah.
doohickeys there that it wraps around. And I guess I was doing it too fast, and the prongs of the vacuum hit me right in the good eyeball. Like,
Face.
and I couldn't see. Like I didn't go black, but I saw nothing but light. And it scared the living shit out of me because I'm like, my God, this is what people with like light perception, that's all they see. I couldn't, on my worst days, I could at least make out, oh, that's a chair or something. But I couldn't make out anything. It was just taught. And so I poured drops in and eventually started to come back. And then, then there was,
Wow.
but then there was this worry of, detached retina because I really hit it hard. But luckily, did x-rays, everything's good. And the sight came back. But it was like, even as a person who is legally blind and who can't see out of my left eye, it's just colors and motions. My right eye is very mediocre, but it gets me by. I do fine with it. When that happened to me, it put a shock to my system. Like, man, you really need to appreciate even your worst eye days, because this is beyond that. And then, again, I've said many times, all the people I have on here, whether they're homeless or have drug issues or, or any other disability that I don't have, I'm grateful that I haven't had to endure those things. And I've endured a lot of other stuff beyond my disability, but I'm just grateful that hasn't happened. And I'm grateful to my legs work, and I'm grateful for my body functioning the way it does. I struggle with brain fog and other things and mental health and some chronic pain every so often and whatnot. But I'm grateful that I can get up off this couch and, walk around my apartment. I'm grateful for all the things I have, and I'm especially grateful for the vision that I do have. For little as it is, I am grateful for it.
Yes, I think that's an important thing, to be happy where you are. I can't tell you how many times over the years, because from 21 to 70 is a long time, that I'd say, thank God I can't see. I go, thank God I can't see. Because whatever it is that everybody else was seeing, I couldn't see. And I was kind of glad that I didn't see that pain or suffering, or the puppies on TV that somebody left out in the cold, or the human beings that are not allowed to come inside and get out of the cold. I mean, my heart breaks that those things transpire, and it just, thank God sometimes I can't see. It's like the song, thank God for unanswered prayers. And I'm not real sure what we're supposed to do with this disability, but I think we become more compassionate. Because the world has lost its compassion.
For sure, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's, up to you now, this younger, brighter, happier person, you're going to have a chance to change the world. And I think you're well on your way. And your mother did a wonderful job raising you.
I appreciate that. She'll be nice.
I'd be so proud if you were my son.
I appreciate that very much.
You better give her an extra hug for me.
When I see her, she lives in Philly, so when I see her,
that's okay. You give her an air hug.
All right, air hug from Mom. I'm actually doing it. No, but I mean, you're right. I mean, like, there are things that I'm happy that I can't see entirely. Like when I watch stuff on Netflix or whatever, I use the audio description, because there are things I can make out for the most part what's happening. But if there's like a book on the shelf that's like a key part of the evidence or something, I like that the narrator will say, this book, the title and whatever, the description of the picture on the book, and it picks up things, or maybe certain facial expressions because the person's further away, I can't pick up on it. So that stuff helps. But I was watching a video earlier, and it was just like I kind of collect these like Dragon Ball Z figures and whatever, and I was watching the guy kind of do a review and an unboxing of it, and he was talking about like the discoloration of like the skin tone of the character out of the box. And I'm like, man, this guy is being like so nitpicky, because I was zooming in and trying to look at it, and I could kind of tell what he's saying, but it's like, man, when you can't see that, stuff like that just doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with like when everyone was like, oh my God, HD everyone's going to see their pimples and all. I'm like, yeah, I don't see that anyway. Then I'm like, who cares?
I don't see faces.
I see the faces, but I still don't, like, I can't make out all of it, but like, especially when they're close up, when it's like a face shot, it's like, okay, I could pretty much see mostly everything. But if it's like there's a little pimple on their cheek, I'm like, I don't give a shit, but like, I probably can't see it. And it's like, but I don't care to. And there are things that like I'm happy that I miss out on, and because so many people are just like everyone wants to be a critic now, and they nitpick at the slightest things because everything for them for some reason has to be like perfection, and it's like there's no such thing as that.
No, and you know what the greatest thing about having this macular degeneration and the newly diagnosed glaucoma, which I don't think it is, but that's just my perspective of this. I think if they just look at your age and say, "Oh, you have glaucoma," but it is the fact that nobody in my eyes gets older. Everybody looks the same age. I mean, they all look beautiful. So I'll say you look wonderful.
Yeah.
There is a gift there. And, all you have to do is leave people feeling better than when they first met you. That's a goal. That's always been my goal. My mission was be a fisherman of people. I had that in my office on the sign. A gentleman with Morpheus syndrome, he went to have surgery. That's like they're extremely tall with big hands and a big heart. So they get cardiomegaly, they get an enlarged heart, and they have to have heart surgery. His wife, the whole time he was in surgery, did this by hand, and she gave it to me afterwards, after he had surgery and he was on the mend. And that was one of the greatest gifts I ever got. And I thought, well, that's what our job is like those people that can't do, we'll figure out how to get them to do it and then get them to the right person. I had hired a young girl to help take care of my dad because he had a stroke, and her daughter came in and she was visually impaired. And I said, "Well, what do you use?" And she says, "A clipboard and a magnifying glass." And she was intensely visually impaired. I said, "Is that what they give you in public school?" I said, "Yep." They just said, "You use this and hold it closer." I said, "No. Because I bought my own CCTVs. They didn't buy them for you back in the day.
Sure.
So I bought one, and then I have an upgraded one from 2004. So I gave her the thing, and you would have thought I gave her $1 million.
Sure.
She could see our friends' pictures. It just blew my heart away that nobody, and this was in 2013. I mean, why wouldn't they be upgraded? ADA, 30 years old. Come on. So
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be the advocate, I will be there if you need a nurse, if you need a hug, if you need any kind of help. I would be more than honored to do anything for you.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah. Well, one, we're gonna stay friends, so that's the most important part. Um, because like, yeah, I didn't know what Again, like I said, this is the first. Well, we talked the other day in my office when you called, which is still surreal to say my office, by the way. But you called and we talked. We had a nice little chat, but that was the first time we ever talked and communicated. And um, I like I said, it's one of the reasons why I kind of like winging it so much because I let people just be themselves and I just figure it out from here. I mean, I have full control whether the episode comes out, but I've never had a problem with that. So I love talking to people. I love just kind of letting them tell their story and get to a place because there's people that have come on that are super nervous and it's the first one they've ever done and they're like, hey, I don't really know how this is gonna play out. I'm really worried. And I'm like, let's just talk. I'll never, if you don't want it out, I won't put it out. And then this eventually they become comfortable, and then a half hour later they're telling their whole life story, and you're like, see, I told you, like it's fine. Like I would never do anything to exploit anybody or try to hurt them or make them look a certain way. And so when people like you come on, it's always great because especially when you're open and really transparent about everything because it helps. I think that for me, that's the thing that really has defined it and like wrapped it all up in a neat little bow. Is I figured it out that just being real kind of will eventually seep through and they'll have to recognize it because too many people are trying to be like other people and there's not enough originality and authenticity.
I think we have to be authentic because we're visually impaired. They get all of us, whether they want it or not. And
Yeah.
we should say thank you to Brandon.
Oh yeah,
He
Braden's awesome.
he is a light that is so bright, and his wife is as beautiful can be. Her bright blue eyes. I remember the day I oriented with her, and she's just a beautiful, beautiful person. I never had the opportunity to meet her two children, but I
They're good
sent them a
kids.
book at Christmas. I gave it to Brandon to give to read at Christmas time, and it's just not based on kindness. And he was so kind to me, and he gave me you, and so you were my Christmas present. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, no, he's a good guy. And both of them are. They're great people. Denise is more the talker, but Brandon, he's the chill, relaxed one. But like when they were on the show, it was funny because like she did most of the talking, but like she would forget a lot, and so he would just fill in all the gaps. And they're a good like yin and yang. But he
Yeah,
because I
nurses have a tendency to talk a lot.
yeah, but he's like I had weird because I didn't really know how to take him because every time I talk with him, he's kind of short winded. He doesn't say a whole lot, but you feel like you're around someone like good energy. You feel like you're around a good person. You don't feel evil or anything, but
Oh no,
you don't really know what his vibes are because he just doesn't say a whole lot. But I've spent a little bit of time with him being over his house and for dinner and stuff, and he's just a relaxed, chill guy. He doesn't like a whole lot doesn't really get to him. I used to work for the same company that I got fired from that he still worked for. And I hear that he's, he's frustrated with stuff. And it's like, to me, if he's frustrated, then that's not good because he's a person that he's just a good person. He doesn't let a whole lot get to him. So, um,
no, he's awesome to work with.
yeah.
He was awesome for me. He helped me. I've been more or less isolated in this house since 2012. I mean, I had to take care of my dad until he passed in 15. But still, from 15 to 23, it's a long haul being by yourself. I mean, it is a lot to deal with when you can't get Netflix or you can't make Alexa do something, and my phone is, I'd like to throw it against the wall periodically, because my main thing is to learn. So I was trying desperately to learn something last night, and I couldn't trick my phone into reading it to me. So I can't use Speak It because we have our grandson here for homework every night after school. So I can't have all that
Well,
ramble on.
I told you before, I think you really should look into an iPhone.
Well, I did. I told my husband, I said, I need to get an iPhone. Um, this is from the OWL program from
Tech
the North
Owl.
Central Site Services.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I can work this one. I've learned to work it pretty well, but it's still, there's, between using YouTube and the phone, there's nothing that's an authoritative text or a scholarly text. I mean, you're winging it when you're getting those kinds of input from things that aren't really, I don't know, scholastically approved. So
Yeah.
it concerns me. And nobody knows how to use a library or a book anymore. I mean,
No.
I did do a class for St. John Newman, and it was based on teaching them improvisation and doing coping skills, and to their sixth grade. I wanted to start it in pre-K 3 so that we could reduce the number of shootings and things. And it's very hard to get people to understand if you don't get the children to trust each other at an early age. Then the bullying already kicks in by grade 5.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you, being only 31, you experienced bullying. I mean, I did through school because I was chunky. So, I mean, it hasn't changed in all these years. And even harassment at work. I had a CFO tell me, you know what? Use the copier upstairs. You could use the exercise.
Yeah. No, I went. I
I
went.
mean,
Yeah. I went through a
it,
bullying from adults and children. So yeah, it wasn't
yeah.
fun.
And so, I mean, it goes for visually impaired, blind, as well as anybody else. Everybody suffers bullying, but I think, you know, It's just very difficult that people have a tendency to really give you a hard time. They won't give the deaf a hard time because they don't look different than we do. You know what I mean? They don't act different than the sighted people.
For the most part, yeah, they can kind of blend in.
They can kind of blend in with their hearing aids, or they have maybe the cochlear implants, or even if it's a visible, deaf talk situation where we have to use an interpreter, at least that's very acceptable because you see it on TV constantly. But you never see anything big print, or you never hear anybody, like when they advertise a new show, they don't tell you the name of it. They just show you this thing. So you don't even know what you're looking at. So it's an important thing that we have to be an advocate for our visually impaired brothers and sisters. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably had more extreme bullying happen than this particular thing I'm going to mention, but I think one that really stood out to me a lot that happened, unfortunately, more than it should have. I mean, one time is too much, but it happened pretty frequently where when I was at school, it was like, oh, no one can wear hats. Well, I was very light sensitive, and I always have been, more so then than I am now, but still, I've always had light sensitivity, and teachers would just come up and just grab my hat and just take it off. And it's like, and I was just like blinding by the light. And it's like, it got to a point where it's just like, can you stop doing that? Because there's a reason. I have a reason why I can wear a hat, please. And the sad part is, at that time, this was a school that was like half visually impaired, and half non-visually impaired. So it's like, it was a school that should have known better. But it was like, it was just one of these things where it's like, do you understand like how vulnerable I am when you do that? And yeah, it's I've done a lot of speakings for like schools and stuff, mainly more for like suicide prevention and stuff like that. But it's like, and I have gone back to the school the school I'm talking about currently. I have gone back and talked to some of the visually impaired and blind kids over like a Zoom meeting and like a Zoom call and stuff. But it's like, there's not enough time in the world that I can go into and talk about all the awful things that I've endured, or people that I know have endured, especially of the visually impaired and blind community, because it's frustrating, because it's like people don't really want to acknowledge us a lot of times, and then there's times when we do it, it's like a lot of times they either downplay it because it's like, oh, you can see. It's like, no, I can see some. But it's like, well, you're not walking into walls, you don't have a cane, you don't have a dog, so that means you're not blind. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And then when I can't see stuff, then it's like, oh, you poor little thing. And it's like, I'm 35, ma'am. Please don't do that to me. Please don't, because then I'm.
Or they talk loud to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or they get over helpful, and then you just want to go, oh, please.
Please don't. Yeah, please don't. This is just tiring. Just treat me like a person. Just know, yeah, I have a visual impairment, but we can work around it, like I've done my whole life. Just because you can't see it, pun intended, you can't see it, I can. All I need is one little thing. Give me that little push, and we're good. But it's got to be all or nothing, and it's like, no, man, it's tiresome, and
even the physician. I just saw my physician back in November. I had to remind her 3 different times. Remember, I'm blind. Remember, I can't see that, because she'd say, "Look here, look at this, look." I'm like, she goes, "Oh, that's right, you can't see." I said, "Yes," but I still don't think she got it. She was young and perky and happy to be.
Sure. And some of these people don't have bad intent. It's just, and you got to pick up on that. You got to, because some people are just like assholes about it. So you take it for what it is. But like, there's people that really mean well. They're just kind of ignorant to the idea of it. They don't have many experiences dealing with people like us. But my favorite is, hey, where are the, if I say you're in the grocery store, where are the potatoes? Over there. Sir, over where? Over there, to the left. That this is a large space, or we're in a grocery store. It could be anywhere. Like, can you be a little more descriptive? Because the irony, I've said this many times, the irony of me is, though I am visually impaired, I'm also a very visual person. And I can envision a lot. If you just say, hey, 2 shelves over, blah, 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 next to the blah, blah, blah. Even if you go, hey, next to the, the apples, it's like, okay, at least now I know to look for cylinder red things. Like, give me something, because it's like, why are you the dumb one? Because it's like I'm the one that can't see, and people look at me because I look at things close. I'm the dumb one, but I'm not. So it's like, please, like I do chuckle because it gets old and it just becomes like just a joke now. But yeah, when someone says over there or in that direction over there, it's like no, 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 that doesn't work today. Please. And sometimes I have gotten people get snippy where they're like, I'm like, I'm visually impaired. Can you help? Oh, I'm sorry. Over here. And it's like, no, don't be a smart ass now.
Don't drag me and make a fool out of me.
Yeah, because I'm like, I am from Philly, and I do. There is a part of me that just will be an ass to you because I've gotten 35 years now, 31 years dealing with the vision stuff. You're not gonna make me feel silly for having a vision problem. Like I like who I am. I'm fine where I am in life. Could things be better? Sure, but I'm striving to get those things. But you're not gonna make me feel like an ass in a grocery store because you just are poor at your job and you can't just be descriptive. But visually impaired problems is what it is. Like I said,
Well, I'm ready to go with you anywhere as long as somebody drives. I'll go wherever anybody takes me, and if you want to be an advocate for something, I would be more than happy to do that. To be an advocate.
Awesome.
I would also love to be on the board of North Central Site Services.
Well, somebody needs to be on that board because they're awful.
Yeah,
those people don't care at all.
I was concerned because I knew that they had taken this was a couple of years ago, all the visually impaired and blind people and put them in the back side and only put the sighted people up front. So, and if you were there, the receptionist, my husband and I went in one time to look at this owl like 2 years ago. And this person at the desk was like, not a joyful greeting person, let's just say that. But when I happened to walk down the hallway, all the curtains were so long, they were trip hazards because they were on the floor. Because when I see something, my feet just stop. They're so educated. My feet will freeze when they see something that's dangerous because that's all I have to depend on is my feet. My feet are very educated. So if they feel something, they stop.
Yeah.
But the curtains laid on the floor, and my heart just like, you need to change this. They're huge curtains. And so once they took away the people that were visually impaired and put them in the back and brought the sighted people up front, and then I called and I said, well, who's on your board? Are they all sighted on your board? And the person answered me, yes. Mm-hmm. Now, that gentleman was from Las Vegas. He is no longer there.
I know he
But they were all sighted on the board except for Bob Garrett.
Yeah. See, I'm good. I'm not going to say too much about this because I got fired from them and I am not trying to get sued by them. But I've taken my shot. I've taken my shots. You're not wrong about anything you're saying. Trust me. As a person who worked there 8.5 years,
I mean,
you're not
I'm
wrong.
not giving them a hard time, but I wanted to be on that board so bad, and I asked, and nobody responded. I talked to that gentleman from Vegas. I can't tell you how many times.
You're talking about Brian.
And they just didn't. I never met him. I just talked to him on the phone, and then finally he wouldn't take my call, so I just quit. But I think, I'm educated. I have a PhD, a master's, undergrad. I'm a registered nurse. I've been around the block a few times. I wanted to be on that board.
Yeah, no,
and
I don't blame you. I've interacted with the board enough, and they're not pleasant people. They're not bad people, but they're just they don't have an aptitude of wanting to do anything. They're just good with the status quo, and that's unfortunate.
Well, I think it's easy for them to do the status quo, but I actually am friends with Josie Plankenhorn. I don't know if she'll remember me, but we did functionally work together at one time, and I am very grateful for the gifts that they have given the visually impaired and blind over the years. So I don't want to, and I love Plankenhorns growing up as a kid. I used to do pastel drawings before I became totally visually impaired.
Sure.
But I do think that, maybe the board should be made up of people from the back of the North Central Site Services and people of the community that are visually impaired.
I don't even
Because
think it
we're
should
hungry
be
enough to get stuff done.
yeah, I don't think it should even be a maybe. That's the thing. So like the company that I work for, just as 51%, I promise you, I'm not like an ass kisser. I'm not trying to go like, oh, my new company's great just so I can take a shot at the old company. It's night and day from me working at this new place. And I've been there 2 months, and everything I asked for in the 8.5 years working there, they've already given me. And in 2 months. And just as within the company, the structure, the people that work there, 51% have a disability. Their board is also has 51% have a disability. And I know there's a blind guy because I'm friends with him. He's on the board of that. And it's night and day. It's just because they don't they're between those two or between North Central and their with the board and with the people that are high ups. It's always been sighted. It always benefits the sighted people. And when I first started there was almost 30 visually impaired people. They're down to 12 or 13 now. And it's because it's gotten worse. And like I said, I try to stay away from it too much because I just, they denied me my unemployment after getting rid of me. I fought it and won, and I said that was going to be kind of my last hurrah of going at them. But you know who they are, so I don't care. Like I'm all for taking shots at them because you're not necessarily doing that, but it's unfortunate.
I used to speak at your Center for Independent Living.
Yeah, you told me.
I used to do personal traits. Work with different people on, humor skills and being authentic and all the different types of coping skills. I enjoyed that. When I spoke a lot of times, but there was a gentleman that was the supervisor or the manager, whatever the lingo is for the highest person, I think, on the office. And he was an older gentleman in a wheelchair. But I have to tell you, he probably set the tone for the Center for Independent Living because he was such a gentle, good man and kind. And, was very accommodating to me. And I think sometimes once the culture is set, the culture will stay, as long as I keep bringing in people that have that same culture-minded kindness. So I'm glad you're there. It'll be a great place for people to come if they need help.
Yeah, I never met that guy because I believe he passed away recently.
I'm just trying to remember his name and I couldn't, but I can see him as clear as can be in my no.
But the woman who took over, she's fully, as far as I know, she's fully able, but she is a fighter and she is, not someone to be taken lightly when it comes to advocacy because she's all about it. She's dead serious and she works with that company Adapt and that's part of the reason why she really took a liking to me because I got hired on the spot essentially because of the podcast and just all the advocacy stuff I do on my own. So it kind of was like a match made in heaven type of thing because I've never been in an interview and they brought up the podcast ever.
Well, Brandon got permission for me to get the computer so I would be the podcast lady. That's what he put me as my handle, the podcast lady. And I admit I am overwhelmed by technology because I haven't seen it in a while. But what I know, I know. And, the podcast, I think, can touch a lot of people in a very good way. And I am so thankful that you gave me this opportunity to talk to you. And I shall be forever grateful.
Oh, of course. Well, we're going to stay in touch.
Before we
do kind of wrap it up, kind of what's your take on, like, for visually impaired and blind people, like transportation? Because to me, that I don't even think it's debatable, but it is the biggest hindrance for all of us. Now, again, I know you're married and you have help, but
yes, Fred does take me wherever I need to go. But, he also has to take Mikey to violin, and he has to help him with his homework, and he has to pick him up, take him home. And so to push another 70-year-old person to the nth degree, I can't push him much more than he's pushed.
Sure.
So, try not to be a bother, but it is very difficult. Like, I think if I'm here by myself, what happens if? Like, who would I call? Like Ghostbusters. I don't know who I'd call,
Right.
because my daughter works 10-hour days, and, my grandchildren aren't old enough to drive, and my other child lives in Homesdale, Pennsylvania. So 3 hours away isn't going to make it or break it. So it is scary. Driving is something that always comes into play. And to have money, I don't have money. So I don't even know how to. I get scared to give anybody a credit card because you don't know who you're giving it to.
Yeah.
So besides trying to find a way to get around this town, what I did like is Fred had a heart attack, and I had to get to the hospital. And you know how you used to be able to dial 22222 and get the old-fashioned taxi?
Oh yeah. We don't have a taxi
That
in
was a
town anymore.
blessing. I mean, for a visually impaired person, that was a blessing. I mean, I could handle that. And then the person waited enough time for me to get money so I could pay him what I owe him. I mean, I didn't know what I gave him, but I asked him, I said, is that enough money? Because I wasn't prepared for him to have a heart attack or throw a pulmonary emboli, whatever. But I needed to get home because I had to be home to go to work at, 7:30 in the morning. Because my dad, God love him, took me to work and to school for 58 years. I am the only person that their parents took them to school and picked them up for 58 years.
Wow.
I'll leave that for a thought for you.
That's
But I
interesting.
do want to say thank you.
Of
And it
course.
was wonderful to talk to you.
Same here. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? The floor is
No,
yours.
I yapped enough.
Oh, you're fine.
It's
Please.
it's that nursing thing, I think.
Oh, you're fine. Well,
So please
yeah,
air hug your mom for me.
I will. But don't hang up. We'll wrap this up and then we'll talk off of the
Okay.
recording. But yeah, I do appreciate you for coming on, and you're an amazing guest, and you're very kind. So you don't have anything to promote, right?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week, and thanks again. Bye bye.